At my daughter's graduation, she stood on stage, looked right at me and called me a failure, a man who embarrassed her. The whole crowd laughed, but 5 minutes later, the university dean stepped forward. Hand bowed to me. I never thought I would live to see the day my own daughter disowned me in front of thousands of people. But life has a cruel way of humbling you, especially when you've already been broken by it. Before continuing, please subscribe to the channel. My name is David Carter. Once I was a scientist with a future so bright it scared me. My research in renewable energy systems was published in journals, discussed in conferences, and courted by billion-dollar companies. My wife Anna used to tell me, "David, you're going to change the world." But the world doesn't always reward brilliance. It rewards persistence, and when Anna was diagnosed with aggressive cancer, all the persistence I had went into caring for her. I quit the labs. I turned down contracts. I gave up everything to sit by her side through chemotherapy, through surgeries, through sleepless nights when she would whisper, "Promise me you'll take care of Sophia." When she died, I buried not just my wife but my career too. Sophia was only 10. She needed me more than the world did. So I disappeared into the shadows. Sophia grew up never knowing just how far I fell. I took odd jobs, warehouse work, delivery driving, and handyman repairs. But those never lasted. The only stable work I found was as a night janitor. Ironically, the job I landed was at the very university Sophia dreamed of attending. It was poetic in a way. While she studied in the gleaming classrooms by day, I scrubbed those same floors at night. Every mop stroke, every emptied trash can, every polish on the marble floors. It wasn't for me. It was for her. To pay for her tuition, her books, her future, she never knew. She thought scholarships covered it all, and I never corrected her, because what father wants his daughter to know is that while she sits in ivory towers, her father scrubs toilets to keep her there. The morning of Sophia's graduation felt like sunlight after years of storm. I wore my best suit, an old navy one I'd kept pressed since Anna's funeral. The fabric was thinning, the cuffs frayed, but I hoped no one would notice. As I walked onto the university lawn, banners fluttered in the breeze. Class of 2025, leaders of tomorrow. Families cheered, balloons soared, camera flashes popped. Pride swelled in my chest. There she was, Sophia, standing tall in her cap and gown. My heart nearly burst. She looked so much like her mother, radiant, confident, ready to conquer the world. When she saw me in the crowd, she hesitated, just for a moment. Then she looked away. The ceremony began. Professors droned on about achievements, the future and innovation. Finally, it was time for the valedictorian speech. Sophia walked up to the podium, her gown swaying, her smile flawless. Applause thundered. She began well, thanking her professors, her peers, her mentors. But then she paused. Her eyes swept the crowd and they found me. And finally, she said, her tone changing, "I want to thank the people who shaped me." Some positively and some, as cautionary tales, laughter rippled softly. My chest tightened. "My father is here today," she continued, her voice growing louder. "A man who could never hold down a job, who spent his life cleaning floors while I worked to rise above the mess he left behind." Gasps, then laughter. From students, from parents, from strangers who didn't even know me, I froze, staring at my daughter. She stood proudly, basking in their amusement. "He taught me one thing," she said sharply, "that I didn't want to end up like him, that I would never settle for being a nobody." The words sliced deeper than knives. A nobody, my ears rang. I couldn't breathe. Around me, whispers hissed like serpents. Did she say janitor? She's embarrassed of him? Oh my God, imagine raising a daughter just to have her spit on you. Some laughed openly. A man in front of me even nudged his wife and chuckled. My vision blurred. For a moment I considered walking out, but my legs wouldn't move. I sat there stone still, letting her words bury me alive. Sophia ended her speech to roaring applause. Cameras flashed. Students cheered. And she walked off the stage without a glance in my direction. I sat in silence, alone, humiliated. Just as the ceremony was about to continue, the university dean, an older man named Dr. William Harris, rose from his chair. His face was stern, his movements deliberate. He walked up to the podium. "Before we continue," he said into the microphone, "I must address something important." The crowd hushed. He turned his gaze toward me. "Mr. Carter, would you please stand?" Confused, I rose slowly. Hundreds of eyes burned into me. Then, in front of the entire graduating class, the dean stepped off the stage and bowed to me. Gasps erupted. Cameras clicked furiously. Sophia's smile vanished. "This man," the dean declared, his voice ringing out across the field, "is no failure. He is no nobody. He is a man of brilliance, sacrifice, and legacy, and every single one of you owes him more than you know." The crowd went silent. Sophia's face drained of color, and in that moment, everything began to change. The wind lifted the dean's tassel as he straightened from the bow. Then he did something even stranger. He offered me his hand, as if inviting me onto sacred ground. Murmurs rolled through the crowd like a low tide. I shook my head, but his eyes were steady, the same way a surgeon's are before the first incision. "Please," he said, and there was no performance in it. "Come." My knees felt unreliable, but I climbed the stairs to the stage. The wood thudded under my worn soles. Up close, the dean's face had the small human details that cameras miss. Fine lines at the eyes, a tiny scar near the temple. He turned to the microphone. "Graduates," he said, his voice carrying without force, "your education did not begin at this university. And some of it didn't even happen in the daylight. Some of it happened while you were sleeping, on floors cleaned by people you did not see." He looked at me. "Mr. David Carter is one of those people. But before he cleaned our halls, he illuminated the world we teach in." The silence tightened. He gestured toward a large screen set up for slides of donors and awardees. The image blinked, then froze on the cover of an academic journal, Journal of Applied Energy Systems. Beneath the title, two names glowed in serif font, W. Harris and D. Carter. A sharp exhale swept the crowd. I heard a young voice behind the stage whisper, "Oh my God," the dean spoke without drama. 15 years ago, when I was still a researcher, I co-authored a paper with Mr. Carter that changed how microinverters disperse load in unstable grids. Some of you studied it. Your labs used it. When the pandemic strained hospitals in low-resource regions, this model kept lights on. When your dorms cut their energy waste by 18% last winter, it sat on the back of this algorithm. He paused, letting the facts land. Mr. Carter left the track that would have made him a household name because his wife became ill. He could have chased grants and glory. He chose to raise his daughter. Heat swam behind my eyes. I didn't trust them to hold. The dean didn't look at me with pity. He looked at me like a colleague. That was worse and better than kindness. "He never asked us to applaud him," the dean continued, "so I will do it for him." He began clapping. It started awkwardly, 2, 3 hands, and then it spread like a brush fire. The nursing students rose first, then the engineering. Faculty stood. Parents followed, reluctant at the edges, then fully. It thundered against the steel supports of the bleachers. I had never been applauded at work. The mop never stops for ovations. My eyes found Sophia. She was a statue, a perfect paralyzed statue. In her frozen face, I saw our kitchen table at 2 a.m., spelling words together. I saw the first day of high school when she cried because she thought she wasn't smart enough. I saw Anna's hospital room, her hand over mine. "Promise me you'll take care of her." The applause softened. The dean stepped aside. "Say something if you wish." I stared at the microphone. My voice, when it came, sounded like it belonged to someone else. "I didn't come here for this," I said. "I came to watch my daughter begin the part of her life where she no longer needs me." A ripple moved through the graduates. I didn't tell her what I did at night because I wanted her to walk forward without the weight of my compromises. Maybe that was a mistake. Maybe secrets don't protect the people we love. They just make their shadows longer. I turned toward Sophia, not the crowd. "Your mother wanted you to have rooms we never stepped into. If I made those rooms feel like they were built despite me, I am sorry." Words swelled at the edges of my throat that I didn't let out. "I'm tired, Soph. I'm so tired." I stepped back. The dean laid a hand on my shoulder, simple, anchoring. Then he guided me to a chair on the stage, as if that had always been my seat. The ceremony restarted on unsteady legs. Names were called, caps tipped. Somewhere between P and R, a student crossed the stage, paused, and squeezed my hand. Later, another slipped a sticky note onto my lap. "My dad's a custodian. Thank you." I kept it like it was currency stamped by a country that still believed in me. When it ended, cameras swarmed. Microphones swung like periscopes. Mr. Carter, what is your message to graduates? Do you regret keeping your work history from your daughter? How long were you at the university? The questions stitched around me. I answered as little as I could. No message, I said. Just be kind to the people who unlock the buildings. I smiled without showing teeth. I was here long enough to be proud of you. Sophia didn't come to me. I saw her with a knot of friends, her smile stuck in the on position like a jammed light switch. A tall boy in a doctoral hood said something to her that put a hand of concern on her elbow. She pulled away gently, eyes skimming the air 3 feet above everyone's heads, looking for a version of the world that would obey her again. I didn't chase her. I'd spent years arriving quietly and leaving without being seen. Muscle memory is a faithful animal. The quad emptied slowly. The dean found me at the edge of the lawn where the shade cooled the grass. Up close, his eyes were wet. I didn't know, he said. I knew you left the field. I didn't know you were here. At night. Night is a good teacher, I said. It keeps you honest. He laughed once, a sharp, grateful sound. Come by my office next week. There's a postdoc who's been trying to stabilize your old model for rural clinics. He could use the mind that invented it. I'm up well, I joked, and he shook his head. You build well, he held my gaze. It's time to build again. I promised I'd think about it, and I meant it quietly. Men mean things when they've learned not to say yes to anything that could break them twice. By dinner, the video had gone viral. Not the valedictorian speech, the bow. A 30-second clip of a university dean stepping down to honor a janitor with a past that wasn't gone. Only dormant. Comment sections filled with warring hymns. My mum worked 3 jobs, crying a wren. Rich kids need to sit down. This is PR, don't be fooled. He co-authored with the dean? Receipts? Receipts arrived. Screenshots of the journal cover. An old conference poster with my name, a photo of a younger me standing by a whiteboard constellation of equations. Someone posted a picture of a checklist from a custodial closet. Carter, H14, lab floors. The juxtaposition made the internet feel poetic and cruel in the same breath. By bedtime, my phone had 47 missed calls from numbers I didn't know. 2 news stations, a podcast with a name that sounded like a dare. A renewable energy startup offering a coffee to pick your brain. The human race is terribly efficient at moving on you the moment you become consumable. Only one call mattered. It came at 11:12 p.m. The screen read Sophia. I let it buzz twice, then answered. Hi. On the other end, a breath that sounded like the sea pulling against a shore. Dad, she said, and the word cracked down the middle. Can we talk? Not now, tomorrow, please. I pictured her small again in footy pajamas saying please about a second bedtime story she already knew by heart. Tomorrow, I said. Where? The bench by the science building, she said. The one with the old maple. The irony made something in me smile. I know the one. I slept badly. Dreams replaced the stage with a kitchen, the applause with rain, the bow with a hospital bed. Morning turned the window pale. I shaved as if the mirror were a witness. I put on the suit that fit me when the world did. Sophia was already on the bench, the robe gone, her hair tied back like she was preparing to study for an exam she couldn't control. She stood when she saw me but didn't step forward. Thank you for meeting me, she said, voice small. Of course, the maple leaves held the light in their hands and shook it gently over us. She sat, I sat. We left a foot of air like a chaperone between us. I didn't know, she said, about the paper, about the dean, any of it. I didn't tell you, I said. That is not the same as you not knowing. Her mouth trembled. I thought you were ashamed of your work. Of cleaning. I made you into a lesson I needed to learn so I could feel proud. And I was mean because my pride is brittle. That's an advanced sentence, I said softly. She laughed once without joy. A boy I like, Evan, he wouldn't walk with me after the ceremony. He said I sounded like the kind of person who tips with the receipt face up. I didn't know what that meant, and then I did. Silence soaked in. A bicycle clicked past on the path behind us, its chain skipping like a heartbeat. I wanted you to be bulletproof, I said. I hid the soft parts of our life so you could hit the world first. I think I taught you to hit it back instead. She looked at me the way a diver looks at the surface before committing. Will you say you're proud of me? Not because of the speech. Because I finished. Because I kept going. I was proud the day you learned to tie your shoes, I said. This is just a harder knot. She leaned forward, elbows on knees, palms pressed. What did Mum say to you? At the end, you never told me that part. It took me a moment to find my breath. She said, Make sure she knows we loved how her mind works, not just what it builds. I swallowed. I have been terrible at that. Her face buckled, the first real collapse. She wiped her eyes fast as if tears were evidence. Then she turned her body toward me, the way sunflowers reorient to morning. Can you show me? She asked. Your early papers? The messy notes? The part of your mind that I've only seen in the corners of our kitchen table? I wanted to say yes and not move for an hour. But years of caution ran their finger along the rail of my ribs. I can, I said, and I will. I also need you to understand something. She looked scared again, ready for a verdict. I'm not a test you pass or fail. You don't have to argue your way back into my life. I want to, she whispered. Then come by tonight. We'll start with the napkin sketches. Your mother kept them. The surprise flickered. In a shoebox, I added. Top shelf. Behind the coats. She kept everything, Sophia said, and smiled for real for the first time that day. Afternoon folded into itself. We walked the campus together for the first time, without the architecture of ceremony around us. She pointed out the lab where she'd slept under her desk once before exams. I showed her the hallway, where the machine buffers always faltered at 3 a.m. and left a thin line of unpolished floor like a scar. She laughed, eyes wide at the idea of her world overlapping so exactly with mine. It felt like mapping two transparencies on a light table and finding that they drew a single image. By evening, we were in the apartment with the mismatched chairs and the good kettle. I pulled the shoebox from the closet and set it on the table as if it held something alive. Inside, napkins, receipts, a cafeteria tray paper, all colonized by equations and arrows. Sophia touched them like relics. You did this on lunch receipts, sometimes on the back of bus transfers, I said. Ink bleeds differently on cheap paper. Makes you commit. She laughed again, and I felt the house loosen around us. We worked through one of the old models with my cheap pen, and she argued with a kindness that had teeth. When she got stuck, she made a noise Anna used to make, tiny, annoyed half-music. I wanted to press my ear to it like a seashell. The doorbell rang at 9:10. Both of us looked up, startled. The dean stood in the hall, tie loosened, an envelope in his hand. Forgive me, he said. I didn't want to call at this hour. It's better in person. He placed the envelope on the table and slid it toward me. Inside, a formal letter on the crest-embossed stationery of the university, and a second, less formal note scrawled on a yellow sticky. The letter offered a 1-year research fellowship, modest stipend, lab access, a small team. The sticky note said, in a different voice, say yes to the door. Don't say yes to the applause. I stared at both, then at Sophia. Her eyes were wet and bright, a weather I recognized. Dad, she whispered, please take it. Caution brushed my shoulder again. Fear, too, the kind that remembers what it felt like to have a life yanked out by its roots. I looked down at the napkin sketches. I looked at my daughter's hands, inked now, alive. I looked at the kettle, small and ready. Okay, I said, and heard the room answer me with a soft click, like a lock unfastening. The dean exhaled a breath he'd been holding since 2009. There's one more thing, he added. Tomorrow will be ugly. The video is everywhere. You'll be a symbol to people who need you, and a target to people who need you to sit down. Our media office can help. Or you can keep the door closed and let the work speak. The work doesn't have a mouth, I said, but it has a pulse. He nodded. Then we'll keep it beating. After he left, Sophia and I sat in the quiet the way you sit in a church after the hymn has ended. She picked up a napkin and we built one more note together, a small bridge between variables. My phone buzzed against the table. A news producer. A podcast again. A startup with too much money and a verb for a name. I turned it face down. Dad, yes, tomorrow. When they ask you what you want, what will you say? I thought of the men in the early shift, their hands rough with bleach, talking about the mariners in the break room. I thought of Anna, of the apartment where the light fell thin and gold across her last summer, of every empty hallway I had ever made ready for other people's mornings. I'll say I want my key back, I said. Your key? The one to the lab, I answered, and felt the truth of it settle in like a spine straightening. Outside, night gathered the city into its pocket. Inside, we kept writing. The next morning broke with an inbox that looked like an avalanche. Subject line screamed, Hero Janitor Scientist. Exclusive interview request. From nobody to genius, a viral story. My phone pulsed like a second heart. Sophia sat at the table, scrolling through comments on her laptop. Every now and then her face twisted with guilt, then relief, then horror. "Dad," she whispered, turning the screen toward me. "It's everywhere. The clip of the dean bowing, your name on the paper, and even pictures of you in your janitor uniform. People are arguing about you," I skimmed. "This guy is proof you can't judge a book by its cover. If he was really that brilliant, why'd he end up cleaning floors? Sacrifice is overrated. Bet he's bitter." The words mixed admiration with suspicion, inspiration with cruelty. The internet had made me a mirror for everyone's beliefs about failure. "I told you," I said quietly. "It's ugly. Truth never goes viral alone. It always drags shadows." Sophia bit her lip. "But look at this." She pulled up a thread with a photo of a hospital ward powered by solar panels. "This system is based on Carter-Harris microinverter modeling. Without it, my mum would have died during a blackout." "Thank you, Mr. Carter." I stared at the photo until my eyes blurred. That had been a midnight sketch, coffee-stained, laughed at by a conference panel. Now it was a machine keeping someone alive in a place I had never been. I felt something I hadn't felt in years, the pulse of my work moving in the world. The dean's envelope lay on the table, the fellowship letter peeking out. Sophia tapped it. "You have to do it. Go back. Show them who you are." I shook my head. "No, show them what the work is. Who I am doesn't matter, but it does," she insisted. "Because yesterday I called you a failure in front of everyone. And today the whole world is learning I was wrong." Her voice cracked. I saw Anna in her then. Not the face, but the way emotion made her reckless, unguarded. I laid my hand over hers. "You were young. Pride makes us blind. What matters is what you see now." At noon, the university media office called. They wanted to stage a press conference. Cameras, microphones, a neat story to polish the institution's image. I declined. At one point, a renewable energy startup offered a 6-figure contract to consult. I said no. At 3, a national broadcaster emailed Sophia directly asking to book me. She read it aloud, then deleted it before I could answer. That night, I walked alone to the lab building I used to clean. The janitor's key still worked. The smell of floor polish clung to the hallways. I passed the closet with my old checklist taped to the door. Inside the lab, the machines hummed, glass speakers gleamed, and equations still covered the boards. It felt like sneaking back into a past life. My hands itched to pick up a marker, to continue lines left unfinished years ago. I uncapped the pen. For 10 minutes I wrote, not with the desperation of survival, but with the muscle memory of creation. Equations stretched across the board like rivers finding their course. I remembered how good it felt, how alive it made me. Then I heard a knock. It was Sophia. She held 2 coffees. "I thought I'd find you here." She stepped inside, staring at the board. Her mouth opened, then closed. "It's beautiful. It's math," I corrected gently. "No," she said. "It's you." Her words landed deeper than she knew. For years I had believed my identity dissolved the day I traded chalk for bleach. But here she was, telling me my mind was still intact, my work still alive. The following week was chaos. News vans are parked outside the university. Students wore shirts that said, "Respect the janitor." Politicians tweeted about me. Recruiters from companies I had once begged for grants now sent lavish offers. But the fellowship, quiet, modest, real, was the only one I considered. When I accepted, the dean's eyes glistened. "Welcome back, Dr. Carter." The title felt foreign, like wearing clothes that still fit, but smelled of another era. The first day in the lab, I met the small team assigned to me, 3 young researchers brimming with nervous excitement. They shook my hand as if I were a legend, not a man who had unclogged toilets a month ago. I told them the truth anyway. Don't worship me. I swept these floors longer than I ever lectured in them. If you want to honor me, do the work better than I did. Sophia visited often, watching from a corner as I scribbled formulas. She asked questions, argued theories, and took notes. The pride in her eyes was not brittle anymore. It was steady. One evening she stayed late, poring over a model. When she got it right, her laugh filled the room, and I thought, this is Anna's legacy too. But the backlash was growing. A newspaper ran an op-ed titled "The Myth of the Hero Janitor," claiming my story romanticized poverty and excused systemic failure. Commentators sneered that I was being used to sell inspiration, while thousands of janitors remained invisible. Others accused me of abandoning my daughter emotionally, even as I paid for her education. Truth had cracked open, and everyone scrambled to own a piece of it. The dean warned me. "This spotlight will pass, but not before it burns. Protect yourself," I nodded, though I wasn't sure how. The firestorm was bigger than me. But when I looked at Sophia, sitting in the lab with ink-stained fingers, I knew why I'd stepped back into the light. Not for applause, not for redemption, but to show her that our lives could be more than shame and silence. One night, as we locked up, Sophia stopped me outside the building. "Dad, I want to apply for the graduate program here. I want to keep studying energy systems." "With you?" I stared at her, my throat tight. "Are you sure?" "After everything?" She nodded fiercely. "Especially after everything." I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked at the building glowing in the dark, the place that had been both my graveyard and my rebirth. Then I looked at her, standing taller than she ever had. "Then let's build something together," I said. The words felt like a promise Anna could finally rest on. The storm outside our lives became impossible to ignore. News anchors repeated my name until it felt strange in my own ears. A clip of Sophia's speech resurfaced. Her cruel words played on loop beside footage of the dean bowing to me. Commentators called it the humiliation before the redemption, and Sophia became the villain of my story. She stopped opening her social media. Students whispered when she passed on campus. Some looked at her with pity, others with contempt. She pretended it didn't sting, but one night I found her crying on my couch, her face buried in her hands. "They think I'm a monster," she said through tears. "And maybe I am." I sat beside her, not touching at first. "You're not a monster. You're young. You let pride speak for you. Everyone does that. Some just don't do it in front of cameras. But you forgave me, Dad," she said, lifting her wet face. "The world won't." "The world doesn't need to," I said gently. "Only we do." The next morning she walked with me to the lab anyway, her shoulders squared, eyes forward. That quiet courage made me prouder than any headline. Inside the lab, the work began to bear fruit. My team and I refined the micro-inverter models, pushing them into territories even my old research hadn't touched. We simulated energy flows for disaster zones, designing systems that could be dropped into war-torn areas or hurricane-struck islands. For the first time in years, I felt the hum of possibility louder than the buzz of fluorescent lights. Sophia sat in on sessions, asking sharper questions each day. Sometimes she challenged me, and when she did, I saw flashes of Anna's fire. The others respected her, even admired her. Slowly, the narrative began to shift. Not the girl who mocked her father, but the daughter learning at his side. Still, the media pressure was relentless. A television producer cornered me outside the lab. "Dr. Carter, America needs your story. A book deal, maybe even a film. You'll inspire millions." I shook my head. "Inspiration is cheap. Work is not. If you want a story, tell them about the systems we're building, not about me." They didn't listen. They never do, but one person did. The dean called me into his office one evening. "David," he said, "you don't owe the world your face, only your work. Let Sophia carry the public side if she chooses. Let her stand where you once refused." The idea lingered. That night over coffee, I asked Sophia, "Would you speak for us? Present the project? Take the questions?" Her eyes widened. "After everything I said? After how I treated you?" "Exactly because of that," I replied. "Growth isn't proven by never falling. It's proven by what you do after you've fallen." A month later, at a university symposium, Sophia stood at the podium. She spoke with trembling hands, but a steady voice about resilience, renewable systems, and the privilege of learning from the man I once dismissed as a nobody, my father. The hall was silent, not with judgment, but with awe. When she finished, applause filled the room. This time, it wasn't for me alone. It was for us. I sat in the audience, hands clasped, eyes damp. Anna would have been proud. Life didn't turn into a fairy tale. There were still critics, still whispers, still the heavy work of equations and prototypes. But Sophia and I found a rhythm again, not parent and child locked in shame and pride, but partners, both flawed, both learning. Sometimes we walked past the maple bench where we'd reconciled, and she would smile softly. Sometimes she joined me in the lab past midnight, her hair tied up, her eyes bright with ideas. In those moments I felt time fold, like I was giving her not just a future, but a piece of the life Anna and I once dreamed of. Months later, at a small ceremony in the university garden, the dean placed a medal around my neck. I hated the weight of it, but I wore it for Sophia's sake. She clapped louder than anyone, tears shining in her eyes. When it was over, she hugged me and whispered, "I'll never call you a nobody again." "You're everything." I held her, my heart full. "No," I said softly. "I'm just your father, and that's enough." As the sun set over the campus, I realized the truth. The world may always see me as the janitor who turned out to be a scientist, a symbol for headlines. But for Sophia, I was simply the man who kept my promise to her mother. And that was the only legacy I ever needed.